From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
Kamala, you're fired!
I say, bring it on.
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Eric Ham here in Washington, D.C. And over the next few minutes, we'll get you caught up on all the latest stories from the United States and around the world. But first, a look at the top headlines. Danish police investigate 2 explosions in the vicinity of the Israeli embassy in Copenhagen. A shooting incident also takes place outside the Israeli embassy in Sweden's capital, Stockholm. A Chinese boat crew violently attacks and robs 10 Vietnamese fishermen in the disputed South China Sea. The Chinese attackers used iron bars to steal thousands of dollars worth of fish and equipment. Taiwan shuts down schools, offices, markets, and cancels hundreds of flights as Typhoon Krathon approaches the island. Authorities say the island's mountainous regions remain at high risk of heavy rainfall and landslides. President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris will visit areas devastated by Hurricane Helene as the death toll from the disaster climbs to at least 155. The storm hit North Carolina and Georgia the hardest, which are key battleground states in the upcoming presidential election. And Claudia Sheinbaum takes the oath of office as the first female president of Mexico. The 62-year-old scientist and former mayor of Mexico City vows to bolster women's rights and improve the nation's economy as she begins her 6-year term. We start in the Middle East, where Iran fired nearly 200 missiles, including hypersonic weapons, for the first time, targeting Israel's military bases. The attack was in response to the recent killings of Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah and an Iranian military general.
With the will of the powerful God, for the revenge of the blood of the late martyred fighter, Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran, and violation of national sovereignty of the Islamic Republic of Iran, and also the recent criminal acts of this criminal regime in killing the commanders and the great leader of Hezbollah and great fighter Mr. Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, and also the noble general and martyred of the Revolutionary Guards in Major General Abbas Nilforoshan.
The latest strike, ordered by Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, was Tehran's second direct attack this year, after it launched hundreds of missiles and drones at Israel back in April. Iran's president said the strike was carried out to bring peace and stability to the region. Meanwhile, the Iranian military has warned Israel of more intense attacks if it in fact retaliates against Tehran.
If the Zionist regime that has gone crazy is not controlled by America and Europe and wants to continue these crimes or wants to do anything against our sovereignty and territorial integrity, tonight's operation will be repeated several times stronger and all their infrastructure will be targeted.
The Iranian army claimed that 90% of the projectiles hit their intended targets. However, Israel said most of the missiles were shot down by its air defense systems. The attack forced nearly 10 million Israelis into underground bomb shelters as the airspace over Israel, Iran, Iraq, Jordan, and Syria was shut down. Following the bombardment, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed that Iran would soon pay a price for its attack.
Iran made a big mistake tonight, and it will pay for it. The regime in Iran does not understand our determination to defend ourselves and our determination to retaliate against our enemies. We will stand by the rule we established. Whoever attacks us, we will attack them. This is true wherever we fight the axis of evil. This is true for Judea and Samaria. It is true for Gaza, Lebanon, Yemen, Syria, and it is also true for Iran. We fight the axis of evil everywhere.
Meanwhile, President Joe Biden said he'd ordered the U.S. military to aid Israel's defense against Iranian airstrikes and shoot down its missiles.
Before I began, I wanted to say a few words about Iran's missile attack on Israel today. At my direction, the United States military actively supported the defense of Israel, and we're still assessing the impact. But based on what we know now, the attack appears to have been defeated and ineffective. And this is testament to Israeli military capability and the U.S. military.
National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan also threatened Iran with severe consequences for the latest missile attack.
Proud of the actions that we've taken alongside Israel to protect and defend Israel. We have made clear that there will be consequences, severe consequences for this attack, and we will work with Israel to make that the case.
Moreover, the United Nations has condemned the worsening conflict in the Middle East and called for an immediate ceasefire. With Iran's attack and Israel vowing retaliation, it appears the sum of all fears has now arrived, and outside mediators, including the United States, are powerless to stop this onslaught. And as Iran's ballistic missiles hit Israel, things got real on another battlefield, the internet. Accounts impersonating the Iranian military and Israel's intelligence agency started a meme war on the social media platform X. The Iranian account mocked Israel's military and Iron Dome systems, as the Israeli account trolled Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. And joining them were millions of netizens as World War III memes raked in millions of views. Here's a report with more.
Iran launched nearly 200 ballistic missiles as millions of Israelis rushed into underground bunkers. And within 10 minutes, the Iranian missiles came raining down on Israel. Though no fatalities were reported, several Israelis were wounded in the Iranian attack. But this wasn't the only attack that Tehran carried out. And Middle East wasn't the only battlefield. Another war had erupted. Armchair generals and keyboard warriors were taking the fight to social media, particularly on X, formerly known as Twitter. A handle impersonating the Iranian military put out some rather quirky tweets, talking about the operation, which has been codenamed True Promise 2. The handle put out a string of posts taking pot shots at Israel. The handle also made fun of the Israeli army and called out the Israeli Defense Forces for dropping bombs on children and innocent civilians. Hitting closer to Israel's heart, the imposter Iranian account made fun of Israel's pride, the Iron Dome system, calling it Iron What and 99% What. Israel has repeatedly claimed that its Iron Dome system has an interception rate of 99%. It has been used heavily since the war first began on October 7th last year. Even in April, when Iran launched its first direct attack from its own soil on Israel, the Iron Dome proved to be the most reliable defense against incoming missiles and drones. But this time the Iron Dome was overwhelmed as several missiles struck Israel, and so the account impersonating the Iranian military had a field day, as it claimed that the Iron Dome was too slow for Tehran's hypersonic missiles. Banter on X is not new, but this was the first time that an Iranian handle threw sass and shade at Israel. Geotagged to the Islamic Republic of Iran, the account was created in June. But its recent posts mocking Israel have gained millions of views. It's a trick or two that Iran has learned from Israel. Israel's intelligence agency Mossad has been in the news lately. They carried out a daring and successful operation targeting thousands of Hezbollah fighters in Lebanon by turning their pagers and walkie-talkies into exploding devices. However, Mossad doesn't have any social media presence officially, but it has fans that do the work for them. A handle on X called Mossad Commentary is one such example. Like the Iranian handle, it too is an imposter. Mossad Commentary tweets about Israel's military activity with some twists. It's known for its provocative humor, which has been on the rise since the chief of Hamas and the chief of Hezbollah were killed. Mossad Commentary repeatedly takes pot shots at Iran and has been making fun of the leadership in Tehran for years, and joining them is the country's official social media account. The Israeli account even made fun of Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei after he tweeted about Iran's latest missile attack. As tensions escalate between Iran and Israel, other social media users turned the opportunity into a meme fest. World War III became the topmost trending hashtag as people from across the world shared memes. Tensions between Israel and Iran remain at an all-time high. Nations are concerned about the possibility of another war. However, the internet remains the same, a place where fun meets anxiety. Memes and hashtags flood everyone's timelines as the internet generation finds a quick fix to cope with tragedy.
And here in the United States, former President Donald Trump slammed President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris over Iran's latest missile attack on Israel. The Republican presidential nominee said the Biden administration is grossly incompetent and is leading mankind to the brink of World War III. During a rally in Wisconsin, the former president referred to Iran and Israel as two children fighting in a schoolyard.
This has really been bad. But they have to finish that process. However it turns out, they have to finish the process. This is a little bit like two kids fighting in the schoolyard. Sometimes you have to just sort of let it go a little bit, and we'll see what happens.
Meanwhile, Kamala Harris issued her own statement saying Iran needs to be held accountable for the latest airstrike. The vice president said, quote, "Iran is the destabilizing, dangerous force in the Middle East. And today's attack on Israel only further demonstrates that fact. As I have said, I will always ensure that Israel has the ability to defend itself against Iran and Iran-backed terrorist militias." End quote. Now, Donald Trump has repeatedly attempted to portray himself as the protector of Israel ahead of the presidential election. The ex-president has also accused Kamala Harris of flooding Iran with U.S. dollars that led to the heightened tensions in the region. In fact, last month, Trump said Israel would be wiped off the map if Kamala Harris becomes the next president.
If Kamala Harris wins, terrorist armies will wage an unceasing war to drive Jews out of the Holy Land, and you know it. And we've had a great relationship with Israel. Iran and its proxies will spread bloodshed and death all around the globe. And as she continues to set the world on fire, Kamala Harris will support unlimited migration from terrorist hotbeds into the United States and will totally abandon Israel. You're going to be abandoned if she becomes president.
Now, Kamala Harris has repeatedly called for a ceasefire in Gaza and the release of hostages, but has also supported Israel's right to defend itself.
I support Israel's ability to defend itself. And I support the need for Palestinians to have dignity, self-determination, and security as we move forward and get a two-state deal done. But right now, the thing we need to get done is this hostage deal and this ceasefire deal. We need a ceasefire. We need the hostage deal.
Meanwhile, a poll from the Institute for Global Affairs and YouGov shows that American voters think Kamala Harris will be better at handling foreign policy compared to Donald Trump. However, in that same poll, it suggests that former President Donald Trump leads the Democratic candidate Kamala Harris on the same question in key battleground states. With both presidential nominees showing solid support for Israel, it remains to be seen who would manage to sway Jewish and American Israeli voters to their side on November 5th. And staying in the United States, Democrat Tim Walz and Republican J.D. Vance clashed at the vice presidential debate on Tuesday. The showdown, which is the last debate before the November election, was surprisingly civil as the candidates kept away from personal attacks. Unfolding against a backdrop of rising Middle East tensions, the debate started with questions on foreign policy. Governor Tim Walz appeared a bit uneasy, but reiterated strong U.S. support for Israel and criticized Donald Trump's approach to global alliances. On the other hand, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance praised Donald Trump's record of no major conflicts during his term in office. After the crisis in the Middle East, abortion rights ignited one of the most intense exchanges of the debate. J.D. Vance distanced himself from the national abortion ban, calling for Republicans to win back voter trust with pro-family policies. In stark contrast, Governor Walz highlighted his state's 2023 law codifying abortion rights, emphasizing the Democratic Party's commitment to protecting women's choices. Now, the two candidates did clash on immigration when Vance was asked directly about the implementation of Donald Trump's plan to carry out one of the largest mass deportations in U.S. history. Vance instead claimed the U.S. has an immigration crisis because of Kamala Harris's border policies. On the economy, J.D. Vance boasted about stability in Donald Trump's era, while Tim Walz accused the Republicans of failing to address the American middle class. Post-debate, both Democrats and Republicans claimed their candidate had won the debate.
100%. I think he hit the grand slam on that issue, made it perfectly clear to the American people where Donald Trump and J.D. Vance stand, and that is they do not stand with American women, and it is putting women at risk. There are women dying across our country.
I think the American people have had 4 years under the Harris-Biden administration. They've had 4 years under Donald Trump. When were you better off? When were you safer? We went from a time of peace to a time of war. We went from a time of prosperity to a time of poverty. This is a no-brainer.
Now, a CBS News YouGov poll painted a close picture, with 42% of the viewers calling Vance the winner and 41% backing Walz. Meanwhile, 17% of the viewers called the debate a tie. Another CBS News YouGov poll showed Walz had a higher approval rating on issues of health care and abortion, while Vance had the edge on immigration. As Election Day approaches, history has shown that vice presidential debates have very little impact on election results. And it remains to be seen whether J.D. Vance or Tim Walz face-off in New York will change what's already shaping up to be a very, very close election. And finally, from Europe, where Switzerland and Italy are making history. Melting glaciers in the Alps have blurred the natural border that once divided them. As the ice retreats, both nations are redrawing their maps, including who will control the Matterhorn, one of Europe's most popular mountains and tourist attractions. But this isn't just about lines on paper. It's a stark reminder of the impact of climate change. Our final report goes into detail.
The majestic Alps, with their snowy peaks and glistening glaciers, have long been a symbol of Europe's natural beauty. But beneath that beauty, an alarming change is unfolding. Switzerland and Italy, neighbors for centuries, have redrawn their borders in response to the rapidly melting glaciers that once defined their frontier. The iconic Matterhorn, one of Europe's tallest mountains, sits at the heart of this shifting boundary. The Swiss Glacier Monitoring Network reports a grim picture. Switzerland's glaciers lost 4% of their volume in 2023 alone. This came just after the record-breaking melt of 2022, when at least 6% of the ice vanished.
If the trend continues that we have seen in this year, this will be a disaster for Swiss glaciers. They will completely or almost completely disappear by the end of the century. So it is needed that the temperatures don't warm so quickly as they have in the last years or decades, and that they stabilize, and then some of the bigger glaciers could still survive in a smaller extent.
And it's not just Switzerland. The Marmolada Glacier in Italy is expected to completely disappear by 2040, potentially taking with it a part of history and identity linked to the land.
Glaciers tend to bring themselves into equilibrium with the current climate, and the only thing they can do is to retreat and shrink more and more. So much so that glacier and climatological models of temperatures in the coming decades lead to an estimate of a 90% loss of glacier volumes in the Alps. In the Alps in general, including the Lombardy Alps, by the end of the century.
So as the glaciers melted, the borders they once formed begin to blur. Switzerland and Italy then reached an agreement to adjust their border. Even though it took years of discussions, Switzerland approved the new border in late September 2023, and Italy is expected to follow soon. Yet the consequences of this melt go far beyond cartography. In July 2023, the remains of a German climber, missing since 1986, were found as the ice around the Matterhorn retreated. And before this, just 2 years earlier, the wreckage of a plane that crashed in 1968 emerged from the Aletsch Glacier. And in 2014, the remains of a British climber lost decades ago were also found. These stories of loss are stark reminders of how long this crisis has been in the making. Even with the Paris Climate Agreement's ambitious target to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, experts fear many glaciers cannot be saved. Some are shrinking so fast that even drastic climate action may come too late to preserve them for the future.
Indeed, it is worrying to me that despite of the perfect year we actually had for glaciers with the snow-rich winter and the rather cool and rainy spring, it was still not enough for glaciers. Due to the much too high summer, they have again lost so much ice that they are far out of balance. Every time you come back and you look at these changes, it is very impressive. And there's really a relation you build up with this site, with the ice, and it hurts a bit to see how the rocks are simply taking over.
For now, Switzerland and Italy have reached an agreement. Their borders will shift, but the melting glaciers remain beyond the control of diplomacy, and unless we act swiftly, the pace of this melting will only accelerate, leaving future generations with more than just shifting borders.
That's our show for today. We certainly thank you so much for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you right back here again tomorrow. Thanks again for watching. From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
Kamala, you're fired!
I say, bring it on.
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America.
Firstpost decodes the U.S. election, explains how America chooses its president. Your primer on the race to the White House. Everything you need to know about how America votes and its global implications. U.S. Election Explained. Every Monday and Thursday only on Firstpost.